UFC 280. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown brought to you by MyBookie. Main event is Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. We have a great card. We'll talk about each of the fights. Make sure you guys smash that like button if you're new. Subscribe. Turn those post notifications on and make sure to share the video as well. And let's start it off with fight number one. Lina Länsberg versus Karol Rosa. I'm going Karol Rosa for the win here. I think she's going to be able to pick Länsberg apart with the striking. I think she'll keep her distance pretty well. If they do clinch, I think that Karol Rosa is going to be able to match the grappling abilities of Länsberg. I think she actually might be a little bit physically stronger. As far as the striking goes from Länsberg, very pressure heavy, but she's also extremely hittable because she's definitely going to look to close that gap, get inside on Rosa, clinch her up, put her against the cage. I don't think Rosa's going to allow it. I think shots will be coming from her as Länsberg tries to close that gap. And I also think that we could even see Karol Rosa mix in some takedowns and trips against the cage. And also something to note with Rosa, you get close on her, she has very good tie clinch knees. I could see her hurting Länsberg to the body. I'm going Rosa by unanimous decision to start the night off. Line for Rosa at MyBookie, it's minus 270. Lina Länsberg at plus 202. Pretty fun first fight to start it off. I actually think these ladies are going to throw down. And if you look to one more thing to note, totally different places in their careers. Rosa, the prospect, that's 27. Länsberg, the 40-year-old. We're going with Rosa, and it should be pretty dominant. Muhammad Mokaev versus Malcolm Gordon. The pick is Muhammad Mokaev, and we have to call it by submission. He has incredible wrestling skills. He actually is a pretty dangerous striker, too. He's very fast. He's athletic. He's going to dominate Malcolm Gordon. Gordon is not an easy out for a lot of these flyweights towards the back end. And I mean, he had a good win over Francisco Figueiredo, and then his last fight against Denise Bondar ended in a weird fashion in like a minute. But Mokaev is a different level of grappling. I know Malcolm Gordon has a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but in this fight, I think that he's going to be smothered when they get to the floor. I think Mokaev will eventually get the back and choke Malcolm Gordon out. I'm thinking rear naked choke, and I also really see Muhammad Mokaev as a future contender. And watch for this guy to end up challenging for the belt. He's very young at just 22. I think the next 2 years, 3 years, we got somebody to keep an eye on. Muhammad Mokaev via submission over Malcolm Gordon. As far as the lines for this fight, Mokaev is an extremely wide favorite. It's minus 769 for Mokaev. Gordon sitting at plus 482. I like Muhammad Mokaev to get himself the win here. Let's keep running up. Next one, Armen Petrosyan versus AJ Dobson. The pick for me is going to be AJ Dobson. I think he can win this fight. He's got the better wrestling here. I definitely could see him taking Petrosyan down. He has a lot of power in his hands. Petrosyan has been slept before. This is outside of the UFC. If the chin is touched with the right shot, an AJ Dobson hook can do a lot of damage. I also think the factor that he might be looking to mix in the wrestling too is going to help him a lot in this spot. Now, Petrosyan, a very good kickboxer from range, picks opponents apart well from distance, moves extremely well. He's very slick. He's an enjoyable kickboxing style. I just think when you throw him a pressure striker like AJ Dobson, who has wrestling in the back pocket and can threaten to get fights to the ground, I think it can open Petrosyan up on the feet. I wouldn't be shocked if Dobson knocked him out. He has real KO power, but I'm going to lean it towards the decision side with Dobson looking to mix in a bit of that wrestling. I think that would be a smart thing to do here. He also has a massive reach advantage, 5-inch reach edge for AJ Dobson over Armen Petrosyan. I really think that's going to help him close the gap here because Petrosyan is extremely good from distance, and I like the jab of Petrosyan too. But when you have a guy that has 5 inches more of reach, that jab's not going to be nearly as effective as it would against a guy with shorter arms. We have to ride the AJ Dobson side. I'm going to call it by decision, but I think the KO is possible. AJ Dobson is super powerful as a striker, and I think that he's a real threat to a real game fighter in Armen Petrosyan. But AJ Dobson's nasty still. I'm not writing him off yet. He just lost to Jacob Malhoun, and now you look how good Malhoun's doing. As far as the lines for this fight, Petrosyan -222, AJ Dobson +171. I'm riding with AJ Dobson to get the win, and he's a pretty good size underdog here against Petrosyan. Great middleweight fight. Next fight on the card, Abubakar Nurmagomedov versus Omargadzhiev. My pick is going to be Abubakar Nurmagomedov to win. I'm going to say by a decision, and a reason I like him so much here is I really feel he's the better striker than Omargadzhiev. Both guys have very good wrestling bases. They're very good at beating opponents up from the top position, but you look at Abubakar Nurmagomedov's last fight against Jared Gooden, who's a pretty powerful striker. He was out kickboxing him throughout the full fight, essentially. Did mix in a bit of grappling towards the end, but a lot of it was striking. Omargadzhiev, I think he needs this fight on the floor, and I think he'll need to be in the top position. I don't think that's going to be easy to do against Nurmagomedov here. I see him fending off takedown attacks by Omargadzhiev. I see it turning into a wrestler versus wrestler striking matchup, and I really favor Nurmagomedov. I think his striking skill set's definitely improving. He looks very competent on the feet. Solid jab. Will switch his stances. I mean, as will Omargadzhiev. He mixes up his stances too, but definitely more so looking to set up takedowns, whereas Abubakar Nurmagomedov can actually sit down and strike with some decent strikers in the welterweight division. I see him winning this fight here. I'm taking him by a decision over Omargadzhiev. As far as the lines for this one, Abubakar Nurmagomedov -181, Omargadzhiev at +141. We're riding with Nurmagomedov to get his hand raised here. Next fight, Yamato Nishikawa versus Magomed Mustafaev. The picks Mustafaev. Nishikawa, that's a hard last name to pronounce, but Yamato is a guy that started fighting at 13. Where he really seems to struggle, though, is he gets hit a lot. And Magomed Mustafaev is definitely a dangerous stand-up fighter. He knocked out Fiziev. I know he lost the last one against Brad Riddell, but he went to a split decision, did lose that fight, did get dropped in that fight. Yamato doesn't have the dangerous stand-up game, in my opinion, to threaten Magomed Mustafaev much here. He's going to look to get this fight to the ground and pull off some type of submission. I saw him look for an Inamari roll in a recent fight. He's super young at just 19, and Mustafaev is 34, been around for a long time. Wrestling base, has a pretty good stand-up game. Watch for his spinning attacks that he'll mix up, and especially Yamato being as kind of reckless and wild as he is to start fights. I could see him getting knocked out. I'm thinking Mustafaev gets the KO here, and I'm thinking he stops Yamato Nishikawa in round number 2. I just feel as though Mustafaev could work towards a wrestling heavy game and control, or he could go towards trying to strike and avoid the grappling with Yamato, and he'll have success in both. Might mix in both games a bit, really get Yamato thrown off. Could see it going a little bit longer if he did go more the wrestling route, but I'm assuming Mustafaev looks towards the stand-up, and he sees the same holes in the striking game that I see. Yamato, he's too hittable. I think he's too hittable. I think that he's a little bit too reckless. He's only 19 years of age. I know he turned pro at 13, which is crazy, but he's still, in a sense, raw, and he's so hittable. I mean, you look at fights, he's beaten up badly against these lower-level guys. Against a dangerous striker like Mustafaev, I think he's getting knocked out. So we'll go Mustafaev KO. As far as the odds here, as expected, Mustafaev is a wide favorite at -555. Nishikawa at +375. That tongue twister of a last name, I think, is getting twisted up with some shots. We're going Mustafaev KO. Next fight on the card, Zubaira Tukhugov versus Lucas Almeida. I'm going to be picking Lucas Almeida to win this fight. I like his kickboxing from distance. Very Thai-based style, but adopted for MMA. Good low kicks, controls range well, powerful striker, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, has the reach and height advantage on Tukhugov here. Zubaira Tukhugov is a decent fighter. I mean, he has the wrestling in the back pocket always. He has a pretty solid jab. He's smooth standing up, closes the gap fairly well. Did eat a good amount of shots against Ricardo Ramos. Lucas Almeida is a longer guy than Ramos, and I would even argue he's a more powerful puncher than Ramos. I think Lucas Almeida is a problem as far as these unranked guys at featherweight, and I think Zubaira Tukhugov is going to be a victim to that Lucas Almeida game. He's extremely well-rounded. 31 versus 31. They're both really in their primes now. I got to go with the Brazilian. I think Almeida's going to look good. I like the 1-2s. I like the way he'll dig to the legs. He's a pretty versatile striker. Tukhugov will rip some low kicks and stuff, but he's definitely more boxing based on the stand-up, and he's quick with his hands. I think it helps when he's very similar with reach or even has a slight reach advantage over opponents. When he's fighting Almeida, he's going to have to close that gap a lot. I don't see him having a ton of success with the offensive wrestling, and I see Almeida touching him up in what should be a fight that I think is going to be pretty fun. I think they're going to throw down for 3 rounds, and I think Almeida takes it on the cards. We'll ride with him by a decision. As far as the lines, Lucas Almeida at plus 129, Zubaira Tukhugov at minus 163. I'm riding with Lucas Almeida, underdog, to get the win. Next fight on the card is Volkan Oezdemir and Nikita Krylov. I'm excited for this fight. I have to ride with Nikita Krylov. If you look at common opponents between these two, Krylov recently fought against Paul Craig, lost by submission. Volkan Oezdemir just recently beat him by decision. MMA math doesn't work, but one thing I want to note on that fight is Krylov played into the Paul Craig game of grappling. I believe Krylov could even finish Paul Craig if he would have really attempted to escape the ground game. He was kind of comfortable in the half guard, and that's what got him caught. Stand up and strike with Paul Craig. I think he would have done some damage there, picking Craig apart. Krylov, he loses that fight. It's not like Oezdemir had an easy time with Paul Craig. It was one of those really weird stylistic matchups with a guy who wants to be on his back and just grappling versus Oezdemir, who's known more so as the power striker. I think Krylov is going to win this fight here against Oezdemir. I think he's pretty well-rounded. I like his quickness from distance. He does have knockout power in his hands. He's a very good kickboxer. Oezdemir, power boxer. He does have some pop in his hands, but hasn't been getting these KOs like his early run in the UFC when he burst on the scene. I think Krylov works some clinch here, maybe even lands some takedowns of his own. From distance, I see it as a competitive striking match, but I give the edge to Krylov a bit. He's a longer and taller guy by a smidge, but I also think he has better kicking skills than Volkan Oezdemir here. So for me, I think Nikita Krylov towards a decision. Could see it 29-28 competitive decision, but I think Krylov does win it. I expect him to look to mix in some wrestling here. Now, I will say Volkan Oezdemir is not an easy guy to take down. I know Daniel Cormier manhandled him years back, but that's DC. Krylov's not that level of wrestler. I could see him struggling to get it to the ground, using takedown attempts to put the fight against the cage and controlling the clinch. Rack up that control time, get himself a win. I'm going Krylov by decision over Volkan Oezdemir. As far as the lines in this fight, Oezdemir plus 140, Krylov at minus 178. I'm riding Nikita Krylov for the victory. Let's keep running up. Next matchup on the card, Makhmud Muradov and Caio Borralho. This is a great fight. I'm picking Caio Borralho to win, but I want to tell you guys straight up, he's 6'1". He's not 5'10". I don't know why Tapology hasn't changed that stat. Borralho has a karate-esque kickboxing style, darts in and out of range, kind of like a hybrid Machida, but I'm even going to call it like a Machida 2.0 because he's extremely dangerous on the ground. Excellent jiu-jitsu, very good takedowns, great control, does a tremendous job of holding the back. Now, Makhmud Muradov is no slouch. This guy had a run throughout, the foreign scene of MMA, has good wins. He comes to the UFC, and he seemed like he was on the way to becoming, maybe a top 15. Ran into Meerschaert in a scrap that he was winning, ended up getting rear naked choked. That rear naked choke concerns me because Caio Borralho shines on backs. I do think there's potentially he gets there with Muradov. Now, I'm not going to say he gets the finish. I actually respect Muradov's abilities a ton here. I could see him getting put in a compromised spot, but Borralho not necessarily being able to find that finish off Muradov. I think that we're going to see a competitive matchup. I do think Caio Borralho might look to grapple a bit here. I think the striking's competitive, but Borralho, I will say, I think he's a more crisp striker. and he's technically better. Muradov has good punching power, has nice overhands, good pressure boxing style, definitely hits hard and is dangerous, but I think Borralho will found nice counters on him. Also, interesting note, Muradov fighting out of that southpaw stance as well, so that'll make for an interesting fight here with Borralho, who can definitely switch it up a bit. But I like Borralho to win on a decision. Ultimately, though, I will say Muradov is extremely game, and I don't think we can just write him off after the fight with Meerschaert. He could pull this one out. I do think he's a live underdog. I'm still picking Borralho to win. I like him here, but this is not an easy fight. As far as the lines, you're looking at Muradov sitting at minus 230, or excuse me, Borralho sitting at minus 230, Muradov sitting at plus 183. I like the side of Magomed. Excuse me, of Caio Borralho. Now we're saying Makhmud. You're getting me nervous that I'm accidentally saying his name. If there's some crazy upset, the universe was trying to pull me that way. I'm not picking it, though. I'm picking Caio Borralho to get the win by a decision. Close fight. Next fight of the night brings us to the featured prelim. Belal Muhammad and Sean Brady throwing down. I'm excited for this fight. I'm picking Belal Muhammad to win. He's training with Khabib a bit. I think that's going to make him better in the clinch positions against the cage. He fights Sean Brady, fellow wrestler, grappler. Now, Sean Brady's well-rounded and can definitely do it all, as can Belal Muhammad. I'll say this. Belal Muhammad has better straight punches. Sean Brady a bit more explosive with his punching, but it's not going to be easy to land those hooks from range on a Belal Muhammad who does a pretty decent job with straight shots nowadays. He also has a great gas tank, whereas Sean Brady gassed against Michael Chiesa. If we had 5 rounds, I would have more confidence even towards the Belal Muhammad side. I'm still expecting him to win. I say he gets a decision. I definitely think he takes the 3rd round. He needs to, come out maybe a little bit faster in the first 2, because Sean Brady early is very dangerous. He's 15-0 for a reason. We can't completely write him off. He's extremely well-built, stocky guy as far as muscle mass goes. Stocky and ripped, not like stocky and chubby. Holds his ground well, good forward pressure, very good submission skill set. Belal Muhammad, incredible wrestler, a guy that's improved overall. He's actually got really nasty body kicks I could see him using against Sean Brady here, because I don't think Belal is too concerned about being taken down. I think Belal Muhammad's going to control against the cage a bit. I think the striking's competitive, but I lean at Belal. I'm picking Belal Muhammad to win this fight on the cards. I'll take him by decision. As far as the lines, Belal Muhammad is sitting at plus 117 underdog. Sean Brady at minus 149. I'm riding with the dog, Belal Muhammad, to win by a decision. An exciting featured prelim of the night. Let's jump to the main card. If you guys haven't yet, make sure to smash that like button. If you're new, subscribe to the channel. It's Katlyn Chookagian and Manon Fiorot. I love this as the fight to open the pay-per-view. I think this is a great showcase for Manon Fiorot. I'm going to take her to win this fight. I do think she gets a decision. Katlyn Chookagian, notorious for being a girl that goes distance in victory normally. I mean, she's winning a ton of fights by decision. Very long girl, 5'9". That's tall. Women's flyweight, that's extremely tall. She has a good distance advantage on most girls. With Manon Fiorot, she's still taller by 2 inches and longer by 2 inches. The difference is Fiorot has an incredible side kick, which helps her control range. I think Chookagian may even be taken down. Manon Fiorot has sneaky throws. I could see her getting on top of Katlyn Chookagian and having success. She has a ground game. She's not a one-trick pony of pure striking. She's dangerous everywhere. I think that Manon Fiorot is going to be accurate, precise, and land a lot of shots on Chookagian. I do think Chookagian survives. I think we're going 3 rounds. I think there's going to be a lot of fights that might go longer here on this card. And I think this is definitely one of them. I think Fiorot, she's going to get her hand raised by a decision, a convincing one, an impressive one, and some interesting statistic note that I found. Katlyn Chookagian absorbs 4.3 strikes per minute and lands 4.6. Manon Fiorot lands 6.6 and absorbs 2.5. Massive disparity in how many times Manon Fiorot is getting hit as opposed to hitting her opponent, whereas Chookagian's near that, 50-50 range. Another reason I think Ferro's an out-striker from range, pick her apart, land more significant strikes, mix in some grappling too, and she may even find more success on the feet because now then Chukagian has to worry about more than just the stand-up, which is already a problem. I think Manon Ferro's going to look special out there. I think she's going to win this fight by a unanimous decision. She's a good play too. I like Manon Ferro with confidence, a lot of confidence. Lines, not crazy. Ferro still strong favorite, minus 208. Chukagian, plus 160. I like Manon Ferro a ton here. I say she gets a decision on Caitlin Chukagian, and I really feel as though she's probably next in line to challenge Valentina Shevchenko, and I'm very interested to see how she fares. Super interested. Great fight. Manon Ferro for the win. Next fight, Beneil Dariush and Mateusz Gamrot. I'm going to be picking Mateusz Gamrot here. I actually think he could get the knockout. I went back and I was watching Dariush against Carlos Diego Ferreira, the rematch. Dariush will still get a little bit wild inside, and at times he's overshooting his shots. His head's there to be hit. He's a guy that doesn't have a ton of head movement. Mateusz Gamrot, yes, known for the wrestling ability, the chain wrestling attack that's some of the best in MMA, period. I think Mateusz Gamrot is a problem. I also look at, I think, Armen Tsarukyan's a harder fight for Mateusz Gamrot than Beneil Dariush. Mateusz Gamrot has the striking advantage here. I think he's the better wrestler of the two. Grappling-wise, I see it as very competitive. I do think Dariush is able to get back up if he's taken down. I do think he will fend off takedown attempts, but Mateusz Gamrot will lead the dance here. And I think because there's going to be a lot of takedown attempts by Gamrot, there's going to be strikes that open up. I can see overhand punches from Mateusz Gamrot finding that Dariush chin and flatlining him. We've seen Dariush KO'd before. It's not like he's invincible to the knockout here. I know he's on a great run, but when you dig deeper at the Dariush run that got him to the rankings, look at the last one. Tony Ferguson, who just lost to Nate Diaz in a terrible showing for him. I mean, wasn't terrible in the sense that he didn't put up a hard fight and give it his all, but that's not Tony Ferguson that was in his prime, the boogeyman. That's not him anymore. He wins that fight, split decision over Diego Ferreira. Those two wins there at this point aren't huge. Mateusz Gamrot just beat Armen Tsarukyan. Tsarukyan's the most difficult fight out of probably the past 5 for both. Scott Holtzman, Drakkar Klose, Frank Camacho. You look there at Tsarukyan, Ferreira, Jeremy Stevens. You see Scott Holtzman, common opponent for the two, and then the controversial loss to Garam Kutladze. I think Mateusz Gamrot wins by KO here. I think he's going to knock Beneil Dariush out. Mixing in that wrestling, he'll find shots on the feet. Dariush is a guy that will brawl. It's in his nature a bit. Sometimes he likes to mix it up and throw down. I think that Mateusz Gamrot capitalizes and gets a KO win. If I have to give you a round, I'm thinking second round knockout for Gamrot. Lines for Gamrot, he's minus 200. Beneil Dariush at plus 155. I'm riding with Mateusz Gamrot to get the KO. And he's a legit challenge to all the top lightweights. Featured bout of the night, Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley. I'm going to be picking Sean O'Malley to pull off the upset here. Reason I like him, he's longer than Petr Yan by a fair amount. He's lighter on his feet. I think he's quicker with his movement. He's definitely got faster hands. Yan, he's a guy that has more of that tight boxing style, whereas O'Malley's very flow with the kickboxing. Yan is also a guy that tends to take a round to start. He's not a fast starter. O'Malley's going to start fast here. I think he already grabs the first round. If it was a 5-round fight, we're talking different. We're talking different about this fight if it's 5 rounds. 3 rounds, O'Malley can move a lot here, set a little decent pace early, touch up Yan with some combos. He's going to be getting some leg kicks chopped at him, but I will say, even though the Munoz fight was short, he was winning that bout, and it also showed me he's improved his leg kick defense. I do think Yan is going to look towards low kicks. I do think Yan is going to look towards wrestling. I think he's going to find it a lot harder to get it in the hips and get Sean O'Malley down than people maybe think. O'Malley is not an easy guy to just bully out there. I don't think Petr Yan does that. I think that he's going to be getting touched up from range. I think Sean O'Malley goes out there and actually puts on a pretty quality performance, and I'll say he wins unanimous decision, maybe 29-28. I do think Jan could take that third round even. O'Malley takes the first two, maybe Jan takes the third. Wouldn't be shocked if O'Malley ends up taking 3 out of 3 either, and he's just controlling from distance, Jan chasing him down. I do think Jan, though, will look to mix in wrestling if he feels the stand-up is not working, but I prefer the rangier striking style as opposed to the more tight style that Jan brings, especially because I don't think there's a huge likelihood of a Petr Yan KO. He has a bit of pop. I don't think he has the craziest one-punch knockout power in the UFC. He hits with some power, but he goes distance a lot. Sean O'Malley's going to be able to take his shots. I think he'll land good ones back, and I think we're going the full 3 rounds with Sean O'Malley getting himself a unanimous decision win. Both guys fight comfortably out of both stances, so that should be pretty interesting. It's the Sugar Show's chance. Huge platform to preform here, because if he gets the win now, he might be fighting for that belt. Sean O'Malley has a huge opportunity, and I really do think he can win this fight. I'm picking him to get it done. Sean O'Malley, the line for him sitting at plus 225. He is a wide underdog. Jan at minus 303. I don't think the line should be that wide. I see this fight closer than that. I think Sean O'Malley's going to have some quality success on the feet. I do expect him to throw some deep front kicks. I'm curious to see if Jan is able to catch any and then maybe threaten with takedown attempts on O'Malley. I do think if that does come, he might drop that, deep front kick attack. But I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if Jan does want to do the majority of this fight as stand-up, and I think O'Malley shines in this spot. He's too quick. I think he's too long, and I think he beats Petr Yan. Sean O'Malley for the win. Upset. Co-main event of the evening, Aljamain Sterling and TJ Dillashaw. I'm picking Aljamain Sterling to win. I'm not picking TJ. No way. I think Aljamain Sterling, he's the king of the backpack at this point. He's got very good wrestling. I would say he has great grappling. He's a rangy kickboxer too. He has solid kicks, moves pretty well, athletic with his hands, very good work against the cage, and very good at taking backs. So if he can get that Dillashaw back, I could see him holding that position for a fairly significant amount of time. I don't think that he gets the type of control on TJ Dillashaw necessarily as he did with Petr Yan, but I also think he'd find more success striking with TJ Dillashaw than he would with Yan. Dillashaw's a very high-paced guy. He comes out immediately and is ready to start throwing down. Tons of forward pressure. He's a very good wrestler with tons of movement, good overhand punches, does a great job closing distance. He's very explosive. He's very light on his feet. He's very tricky to deal with for pretty much everybody in bantamweight. I mean, this is why he's challenging for that belt. You look at TJ Dillashaw's fight against Sandhagen. It was a back-and-forth war. He did take a lot of damage there. I think he'll take some damage against Sterling too. I'm going to take Sterling on the cards, though. I'll say he'll get it done by a decision. Sterling's not a huge knockout puncher, and I don't think Dillashaw is going to be an easy guy to submit. So I'm going to ride with Sterling. Unanimous decision, beating TJ Dillashaw. I mean, TJ Dillashaw, former champion at 135 pounds, gets a huge chance now to reclaim that champion status. But let's not forget he was suspended due to abusing anabolics, or I guess technically abusing PEDs. It was EPO that he popped for. He still looks freaky as fuck. I'm not saying he's on anything, but it is a little bit concerning to see how crazy he's looking, and he looks the same as he did when he was on the stuff. When he's off the stuff, doesn't necessarily make sense. Can you imagine a world where TJ Dillashaw wins and then he pops again for EPO? At that point, it's over. At that point, he's probably done in the UFC. They got to just let him go. Like, they couldn't have a champion popping again. I mean, granted, I guess John Jones did it. Maybe they keep TJ around, but he's no John Jones. I don't think that happens, though. Aljamain Sterling is going to win, and he's going to look pretty good out there, winning a unanimous decision against TJ. As far as the lines, Sterling, minus 178. Dillashaw, plus 138. Also, I'll say this. Sterling is on an absolute roll. TJ having some injuries, setbacks. His body's more beaten up. I think Aljo is going to look good out there and get himself a win. Fun fight. Obviously, Aljo's had some neck injuries too, but Sterling for the victory. Main event of the evening, Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. Make sure you guys smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe to the channel. Let's talk this fight. I think that Islam Makhachev is going to win, guys. I love Charles Oliveira, but I have to call it as I see it. Makhachev has the wrestling edge. He's a very patient striker. Oliveira's having a lot of success standing up with fighters that bring the pressure to him. And let's be real, if Oliveira starts getting reckless and wild, I could see Makhachev landing an overhand punch, which southpaw stance, left overhand. Oliveira would be in trouble by that shot. That's a shot he's hittable with. You saw Dustin Poirier touch him up with that left. I think that Makhachev should find it too. And if he does find it, who's to say he doesn't follow up? I think he definitely follows up. This is a guy, Islam Makhachev, who's not going to be afraid of playing the ground game with Charles Oliveira. All the recent opponents for Oliveira that we look at, I guess I'll give Michael Chandler a little credit. I mean, he did escape bad positions on the floor, but it's not like he wanted to be on the ground. You know Dustin Poirier did not want to be there. You know Justin Gaethje did not want to be there. Makhachev will embrace that. He's got extremely good wrestling. He's Team Dagestan, the Khabib protege. They're saying he's better than Khabib, but I'm not picking him because of the hype. Digging into the matchup, doing my research tells me I think Makhachev's patience can really win him the fight here. Oliveira, I could see getting reckless and caught. I see Makhachev following up a ground and pound. I also see a chance that Makhachev is able to consistently take Oliveira down and maybe even hold him down, maybe even pass to dominant position and get off some ground and pound. I think Islam Makhachev shines, becomes the champion in Abu Dhabi. I'm picking him to win by KO TKO. I'm going to call it third round KO TKO. I do see ground and pound as a possible way to win for him. Could see him touching up Oliveira with a shot on the feet. I know Oliveira's dangerous standing, but he's doing a lot of these, incredible feats with these these knockdowns and winning these fights, getting into brawls back and forth with guys that are more willing to engage. Islam Makhachev is a safety-first fighter, and for that reason, I think he finds a ton of success. If he went out there and won 5 rounds against Oliveira and he wins a unanimous decision, I'm not too shocked either. If he goes out there, drops Oliveira, and looks for a submission to prove a point that he chokes out the submission leader in the UFC, I wouldn't be too shocked either. I think Makhachev's getting his hand raised, and I think he does it in impressive fashion. Now, obviously, I love Charles Oliveira. It's hard to pick against him, but I have to call what I see. It's Islam Makhachev and new champion. The belt's going back to Dagestan, and maybe this is the best lightweight we've ever seen. We'll find out. Saturday night is going to tell us a ton, and I cannot wait for it. Let's read the lines off. Plus 144 for Charles Oliveira, minus 185 for Islam Makhachev. Listen, for Team Dagestan, those are some pick'ems odds. That's an even line. I'm picking Makhachev to win. He beats Charles Oliveira, and he becomes the lightweight champion of the world. Guys, this card is incredible. I will be live for the entire thing, so make sure you tune into the Fight Companion. Smash the likes here if you're new, subscribe. Turn those post notifications on. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of the picks, and if you don't have anything to say, but you just enjoy the content, drop a W in the chat. As always, make sure you run over to MyBookie and make sure to use promo code EXPERTS when you sign up. Thank you all so much. Appreciate the continued support all the way to the top, baby. Much love, my people. Peace, and I will see you all in the next one.